Welcome to Heart Mindify. Before we start the show, just a reminder to share, rate, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it. And please give us a 5-star rating. It helps us beat the big tech algorithms.
I'm John Izzy. Change can be difficult for a lot of us, but when we understand what makes us tick, we develop a better understanding of who we are and begin a journey of discovering our best self. Join me for a free session at johnizzy.com.
And I'm Kim Cordy, creator of the Emotion Chef Framework, an emotion management tool. Thoughts drive emotions, and emotions drive thoughts, but it's our emotions that drive our decisions and behaviors. Find out more at kimcordy.com.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Knowing each other personally and socially for the past 10 years, Kim and John have joined forces, bringing years of experience and training, providing a platform for growth and personal development, along with a little humor. John is the heart, Kim is the mind, and together they are Heart Mindify. Hello, Kim. It's the day after elections. How are you feeling?
I'm exhausted. I stayed up. I think it was like 1 or 1:30. I kept waiting because they kept saying on the news, Wisconsin's going to say something, tell us something. I'm like, I want to hear something. And yeah, no, I fell asleep. But I was awake to hear President Trump announce he had won.
Yeah. Well, I know, right? I went to bed at 10:30. I had people come over last night because I'm training someone to take over a position that I'm in. And her husband came over and they left around 8 o'clock. And I started watching TV. And I think by 10:30, I was exhausted just because of all the scenarios. It was like, well, if he wins this and if he wins this and if they get this electoral, then I'm like, oh my God, you people are driving me crazy. And I just couldn't take it anymore. I was just physically exhausted and mentally drained. So I thought, it's best to just go to bed and wake up in the morning and see where we are.
It's true. It was emotionally and physically draining. I'd say, I'm not going to watch this. I'm not going to watch it. And then I'd go back to it. So for people out there, this makes my sister crazy. It makes my husband a little crazy, but I have disdain, not just hate, disdain for suspense. I can't take it. I will read, if I'm reading a book, I go to the end, I read the last couple of chapters.
No, you're not one of them.
I go back and I enjoy the book just as much because now I'm watching how they build up to the ending. I know the ending, but it's like, how do they get there? Because I'm trying to figure out what path they're going to take. And I enjoy the book that much more. I've done this for years. In fact, if I'm watching a highly suspenseful movie, I will go get my computer. I'll look on, how they have Wiki has the movies and it gives you the plot. Yeah. And I go right down to the ending. I'm like, okay, I know how. And I watch the movie. Like I can now relax and watch it and enjoy it.
I'm the total opposite. I love in movies and books and that, I love the suspense. TV shows, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like if I'm watching Big Brother or Amazing Race, I kind of look at the, spoilers every once in a while to see what's happening. But with something like this, it's been really difficult for me because there are certain things that we talk about on a continual basis that is really slapping America in the face right now. It's really difficult for me to understand why people vote a certain way. It's as if what you believe about how you live your life gets put on the back burner when it's time to cast your vote. meaning you say one thing and you vote a different way. But I guess that's the democratic process, and Lord only knows what people are thinking of when they're in the booths. I totally get that there are people that are just not going to agree with each other, and that's fine. I think for me, I have great hope in people and believe that what we are living through is just not healthy, no matter what party you vote for, and that change is absolutely needed. But I'm also aware that there are people hoping that my views change to complement theirs. I don't know, it's just frustrating for me, and it's a little disheartening because I know there are good people that are swayed by a louder voice.
Well, so let's take a few minutes and talk about that. Do you mind sharing an example of where they say one thing and vote another? Like, what is your example of that? If you want to share it.
Sure. So one of the things that I get all the time is um, I talk to a lot of Christian people, right? And people that are supposedly, following scriptures, love of neighbor, um, those kinds of those kinds of ideals that are so present throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. And yet, on the other hand, it's like I'm voting for someone that calls the coronavirus China virus. I'm voting for someone that degrades people based on their race, based on gender, based on a lot of different things. And it's like I can't reconcile in my mind. And before I finish, I'm not judging anybody for doing this, right? I'm just trying to understand it. So I can't reconcile in my mind how, in one breath, you can say that you follow the Christian values, and in the second breath, you are following someone who is total opposite of those values. And that's frustrating to me. It's just frustrating to me.
Agreed. I will say that it's difficult to find a politician that represents all that is moral and good because we're all human, right? But we have
Right.
degrees of that. And there are some who are very blatant and some who are it's less obvious. So then that begs the question of, which I always talk about, which is what is driving those decisions. So it's emotions and wanting a particular outcome. And then asking yourself why. Why is the most underutilized? Because if you do a good self examination of why am I going this direction? Like, is this in conflict with my values? What are my values? And you start to see that not enough people, in my opinion, do enough self-examination as to why am I going this direction? Because if X is so important to me, then does this person represent X? Or do I just feel they're the closest to X? And is X more important to me than Y or Z? And it's a conundrum, I think, for a lot of people because they don't look at the whole picture. They focus on something in particular. Or I also feel, which is true for all of us, we become blinded. We are blinded to facts and things because we don't want something more than we want something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think it goes back to, because I've talked to a lot of people because I live in a very Republican area. So a lot of my friends are Republican, right? And so I ask them questions all the time about how do you justify one and the other. And their answer is, I like the policies. I like the Republican policies. I don't like Trump, but I like the Republican policies. And that I'm a little bit better with. But I don't know if that's a cop out and just a way to have a conversation that's non confrontational, or if they truly believe that. So I don't know what to make of it, right? It's something I'm trying to understand because we come on here and we talk about reflection of self, We talk about how we make decisions. We talk about our feelings. We talk about what drives those decisions that we make. We talk about a lot of different things that deal with self-awareness in a way. And when you look at the two camps, there's definitely this stark difference. And that concerns me. And I don't think it concerns me because it's Republican or Democrat. I think it concerns me that there is such a stark difference in this country and and I don't want to say between right and wrong, but between
The two camps.
yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm sounding really confusing, and I think it's because I'm confused, right? I think it's because I really have hope in the human being for goodness, right? I do believe that people are good, and I do believe that people are innately good. And yet, what's been going on in this country in the past year has shown something so very different. And it's disheartening. It's extremely disheartening because people find that it's okay to attack people, and it's okay to have a discussion that turns violent. Like that's become okay. And no, that's not okay. I don't care who you are. That's not okay. So I think it's just left me with, you know, just a little bit of anxiety over the election outcome and a little anxiety over where we are as a society, where we are as human beings. And no matter what's going to happen after the election, we still have a problem in this country that needs to be addressed. And if we still are in this partisan politics, we're never going to address core issues, and that's the human person. And maybe that's not what the government's supposed to do. I don't know.
That's a good question, John. I don't know if that is the responsibility of the government. I think the government and leaders are just that. They need to lead by example. And there needs to be like going back to why and understanding another's position. And even so, after you've done that, there's still the fact that you might not agree even afterwards. I'm with you. This is a highly, highly emotional time. There's a lot of emotions going on and fear. Otherwise, why would Macy's board up their store for the very first time in New York? And I've never seen anything like this. And it's like we're turning into a one of those countries that the United States used to think that they were so much better than, because we didn't have that. We were very civilized. It's like we were becoming uncivilized. So how could we
Yeah.
regress? How could we regress? But then I think to myself, well, how is it that Egypt built all of these pyramids and had all of this amazing technology to create what they did, and then they went backwards, right? Like they don't do that anymore. There's not that skill set. Rome, I mean, they conquered left and right. When you think about all of these great civilizations that pushed forward, and then what are they now? They're not the powerhouses that they used to be. So it makes you wonder if we're just headed down that same path of not being the powerhouse that we used to be, and it's really by our own doing.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. And I think it has a lot to do, and I know we're going to talk about this next week, possibly, or the next 2 weeks, but I think it has a lot to do with this mentality of winning at no cost, right? It's this high, unbalanced masculine energy that is just killing society right now. It's a very individualistic. It's my opinion, my opinion, my opinion. It's all me, 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 me. And there's no sense of outreach to your neighbor or outreach to another person. If you just scroll through social media, and it's very one-sided. It's very closed off from the rest of the people that are on Facebook or even on Twitter. It's the language that people are using that is just really disturbing, extremely disturbing. And it's this individualistic mentality that I think is this very siloed approach that is just extremely disturbing.
Did you ever see Talladega Nights? It's the story of
I
Ricky
don't think.
Bobby. Will Ferrell plays a NASCAR driver, and his motto that he said he got from his daddy was, "If you're not first, you're last." And
Yeah.
it was like, it's that kind of mentality, right? Like, if you're not first, you're nothing. And if I used to think like, well, why, why not create that competitive edge? Like, people like competition. It helps them to get better. But at the same time, when there's too much of anything, it's not good. I always tell people you can drink too much water and drown. It's just too much of anything or not enough of something. It's that nice balance. And so we have this attitude, like you were saying, of win, 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 win at all costs. It's all about me. And until we see it's all about us, we all need each other. And I keep wanting to go, we'll be talking about that masculine energy and feminine energy, which some people might not get the concept immediately, which I'm sure you will clear up, but it's very true. It's that whole masculine Ricky Bobby, I'm a male man and I'm going to win. And women would look up to a guy who is, he's a winner. And like, so if it's at the detriment or if it hurts other people to win, I mean, in NASCAR, like whatever, but in life, if you want to win at all costs to the detriment of people, that's a problem. And yet that's where it seems like we are.
It is. And if you look at the way our government's structured and you look at the way our big business is structured, it's structured with a very masculine mentality. And again, we're going to get into this, so I don't want to belabor this, but
It's
it
an
is
interesting topic, John. It's going to be, it's very interesting.
It's a huge topic. Look, in our environment, we are living in a very siloed approach to life that, as you said, is a win at no cost mentality, where we are very controlling, demanding, compartmentalized, directed, forceful, you name it. And this type of approach affects not only ourselves, but everyone around us. It's extremely unhealthy for the human condition. And this carries over into politics. And who loses? Yep. We do. We suffer the consequences. The only way out of it is through a candidate or a movement that pulls the country into a more balanced approach by setting boundaries, leading with compassion, being more collaborative, and a balance of logic and intuition. But in our current environment, that's unthinkable.
No. Well, look at the success of Gandhi.
Yeah.
Right? He was effective and then he died for it because living in a non-violent world, trying to accomplish things without violence just seems wrong. It was wrong enough for someone to say, I'm going to kill you. So I'm going to watch that movie. I don't know enough about Gandhi's story, so I decided I'm going to.
Great movie.
I never watched it. I've read a bit about him, but he was an interesting example to me of a person who went very, very far and then got shut down. And if you look at India today, it's pretty far from those values.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think we'll have to wait and see. But, if Trump wins, I think we're going to have the same thing that we currently have, which a lot of people might want. And all right, we'll make do and see what happens. If Biden wins and the Senate and the House doesn't flip, which it looks like it's not going to, then we're still stuck in this partisan um, politics that's going to go nowhere either. And who loses? The American people lose.
Well, the House isn't flipping, but the
You know,
Senate might.
I is it close to flipping? I don't know.
Uh,
I thought it,
I think it was still
I
too
thought things were
close.
pretty stable. It's
Hmm.
still too close.
Maybe, I don't know. But um, I think the point is that our emotions drive our decisions and behaviors. So
Hmm.
examining them, looking at what are your emotions, and being very thoughtful and in that examination is really critical, especially when you're making big decisions like this. And what is clouding you, like what is driving you, and is it true, which is the bigger thing.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? That's the big question. Is it true? And we've got to come up with our own decision on whether we think something is true or not, because a lot of things are skewed. The media skews the truth, social media skews the truth. There's there's proof now that Google's responses are set up to give information a certain way. So it's difficult to gravitate towards one political party over another without some type of bias going into it. And I go back to what we've said 1,000 times. It's about you individually. And if you change for the better, then people around you are also going to change for the better. And that's the wave that we need in this country, whether you're Republican or Democrat or independent or whatever. It has to come from individuals. It can't come from the top.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's where my frustration is because we put hope into our political leaders to make the changes to benefit us. And it needs to be the other way around. We need to make the changes to better ourselves and then to have those political leaders reflect us. And I think we need to switch that mentality, and that's going to take time. I don't
Yeah.
think it's going to happen overnight.
Well, they say you can't boil the ocean, but I say you can, because it starts with just one bubble.
That's it.
And I
That's
think
it. You're right.
so. It eventually it will boil.
Didn't you create a slide once that was boiling the ocean or had something on boiling the ocean? I think
Yeah,
you did. Didn't you had it at
I,
one of your presentations or something?
I have a whole thing about boiling the ocean, because I just feel that if you don't think that you can, then you're not going to. And I feel we
Right.
can. I do feel that we can. And I can't express enough how much I agree with you that it is individual. And of course, I drive right back to emotions. I'm an emotion chef, right? That's what I do.
Right.
That's my thing. And and they drive us. And so for me, that's how I'm trying to turn up the heat. And I know that's not the only way. That's not the only burner that we can turn
Right.
on, right? Like there's several burners that we can turn on, but it really has to do with consciousness and being conscious. And I I see so many people who walk unconsciously through this world, and it's just about being conscious, really. And it's not about being awake, it's about thinking presently. It's like it's contemplation. It's not about anything other than that, taking in
And it's
information than beyond what currently exists. That's why world travel changes a person. That's why reading books, hearing alternate views, it changes people, and as well it should.
yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think we unless we are open, right? And that's I think maybe the problem, right? It's the willingness to be open to the possibility that I can improve on myself, right? And in that improving, hopes that the people I come in contact with are also improved. And but it's being open to that. And if we're not open to it, then we're never going to move into a direction that is anything except for what we are right now. And
Yeah,
right now, we're not in a good place.
no, but being open to listening doesn't mean open to believing everything. It's just
Right.
taking it in, right? And weighing it
Right.
out
Right.
with
Right. Right.
other things that you know, and then adding to it. I often think that it's a matter of exposure. And when you're living remotely or you're living in the out in the country in these small towns, your opportunities for exposure become quite reduced. It takes more effort because you're just living day to day like your mom did, like your dad did,
Right.
like your grandparents did. It's just kind of rinse, wash, repeat. And it takes some effort.
It does. You're right. And that's why we see in these political maps, the urban areas are typically voting in one direction and the rural areas are typically voting in another. And it's not to say that one's better than the other. Please, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the level of experience and exposure is totally different. And that presents different opportunities and different choices that a person can make if they live in an area where there's more availability to life experiences, right?
Yeah. And that's why I think the college life is probably just one of the best things for a kid. Um, I was raised, as you know, in a religion that did not encourage going to college. And the reason is because they didn't want anyone to be exposed to any sort of education that would influence them away from the church.
Right.
And like, why should you ever be afraid of learning anything? Because if what you're saying is true, it will stand up. And that person needs to make a decision based on all the information. And if all the information comes through and it still resonates with the truth, quote unquote, that they were taught as within the
Right.
religion, then it'll stand. And if it doesn't, well, then it doesn't. And you have to allow for that. But this is why they like to cloister and segregate so that you don't have the opportunity to be opened up to different understandings, to different viewpoints. I am a completely different person than I was growing up. My field of view has opened up 360. I turn around and look every direction. And I think this is why I am so passionate about opening up your view. Like, this is why I talk about it so much, because I have that experience of growing as a human, growing as an individual, growing and changing my beliefs or my emotions, my feelings, my viewpoints, all because I was so fenced in before. And I can't recommend it enough. And I know this is where it comes from. So I guess I should be very grateful for that experience.
But it's funny because you mentioned the religion and religion changed as soon as Bibles were available for the average person to read, right? Because before that time, it was controlled.
In
Preaching
Latin?
was controlled. Yeah, I mean there was such a language. Even in Latin, though, the preachers were preaching because they only had the scripture and they could only read. It wasn't until we learned how to read in the language that the scriptures were written in or translated to that people had started having their own individual thought, so, and their own interpretation. And you see a lot of changes at that time period. So
Right. The
you're right.
splinter
I mean,
Christian
I think,
religions, Lutheran.
yeah,
And
yep. I think being informed is huge. And I think it goes back to we're just a lazy culture. We don't want to expand our knowledge because, we're doing okay. We're doing okay. And when we live our life doing okay, then we lose the opportunity to do great.
So
And I think we all need to do great.
I want to use a word other than lazy. And I would say there's no motivation for it.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
And the reason that I say that is because when things are okay, you don't know that they're not, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it needs to be a swell of curiosity that should be developed within that person to be curious. So a lot of us are raised to not be curious. And so if we can develop curiosity and say, well, why do I believe that? Why do I think that? Why do I feel that? Why? And when you can do that kind of self-examination and create curiosity, that's the magic.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great way to bring this podcast to a close. Listeners, you can hear the frustration I know in my voice, and I hear frustration in your voice too, Kim. So it's like,
Yeah.
we're all in this together. And at the end of the day, no matter who's elected as president and which senator is elected and which representative is elected, we still have to come together as a country, and we still have to work on our own advancement and being great on a human level. We just need to be great. We can do it. I know we can do it, but it starts with stopping, like you said. Stopping, take a moment, question your thoughts, question your feelings, question what you believe, and move on from there, Challenge yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Don't be content.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
If I would love to be the little irritation that sits in everybody's brain that says, "Oh, this is I gotta figure this out." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
can't.
You can't.
Because it's the irritation that makes you move.
All right, Kim. Well, listen, I hope your day gets better.
Well, John, my day is better already just because I got to share this time with you. I don't know how many people are listening, but it's just nice to know that I'm able to speak and able to share, and that we can share our thoughts, and it feels good to share them. So, and to share them with
Absolutely.
you, it's
Yeah, I
very,
agree.
very enjoyable. So
I
thank you,
agree.
everybody.
I agree. Thanks. All right, Kim. Have a good day. I'll talk to you later.
You too. Bye.
All right. Bye. New shows are available every Saturday right here on heartmindify.podbean.com or wherever you listen. Kim and I would like to thank each and every one of you for allowing us to be a small part of your life. Be kind to yourself, and remember, our hearts tell the story, but our mind is the conductor.